Good day, everyone. I am Melchi Gustan Silvosa. Now I'm going to report the continuation of types of communication, which is the nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication, it is a body language, speaker, sending or receiver of a wordless message. Nonverbal communication. When we say nonverbal communication, it is a process of communication without use of words. The communication takes place through signal such as facial expressions, body language, nodding of head, gesture, posture, eye contact, and physical appearance and support. There are two types of purpose and style: the formal communication and the informal communication. Formal communication, it is a certain rules, conventions, and principles are followed while communicating the message. We use formal communication when we are speaking with teachers, parents, adults, and sometimes friends when we are in public places. Formal communication uses correct grammar and sentence structure. Example: which sentence or situation is more formal? Abbreviation like NEMSU, SMCHS, TCAS, or hello, how are you doing? The correct one is the hello, how are you doing, which is formal communication. Now, let's proceed to informal communication. We use informal communication with friends. Informal communication does not have to correct grammar, spelling, or sentences. This is done using the channels that are in contrast with formal communication. It is a casual talk. Informal communication can be a text, chat, greeting, abbreviation, casual, casual conversation, card, or slang. Example: which sentence or situation is more informal? The word LOL or good morning, my name is Melchi. The correct answer is the LOL. That's the informal communication because it is only abbreviation and a slang. According to form, there are two types: the intrapersonal and interpersonal communication. When we say intrapersonal communication, it is the communication with oneself. It involves thinking, analyzing, interpreting, assessing, contemplating, feeling, and etc. It is no reflect to the individual self. To the there is no reflect the individual self with a view to clarifying something. Silent talk, question suggestion, self-tape, self-conversation. It is an activity that takes place in our mind, wherein a person is involved in a conversation with himself or herself, commonly known as self-talk or inner speech. Now let's proceed to interpersonal communication. It involves participants, communicators, both sender and receiver, who are independent on other on one another, have shared story. Interpersonal communication is the one to do a communication between two or more person wherein exchange of ideas, information, or messages take place through a channel. It can be a face-to-face communication between parties, communication over mail, telephone, and the like. In interpersonal communication, the way something is said is as important what is being said. Whenever we try not to say anything to anyone at all, it says something about your mood, attitude, or nature, not by words but through the nonverbal signals. Now, let's proceed to public communication and mass communication. First, the public communication. It is the heart of our economy, society, and politics. It is a field built on ideas and images, persuasion and information strategy and tactics. Public communication. It is one of the example. Is the election last month, which many politics campaign together with their party list. They speak in front of many people to get the majority vote and win the election. When we say mass communication, it covers other form of public communication. These, these are the printed forms, radio, television, and movies. Many people in many places at different times can receive the same message because mass communication it covers breaking news, radio, printed form, and etc. Now, let's begin. Have you noticed? Next slide, please. The elements. The objective of the elements of the communication. At the end of the lesson, the student should be able to explain the process of communication, the differentiate various level of communication, reflect on the learning on the fundamental of communication. Next slide, please. Let's begin. Have you noticed that there are always processes involved as you do your daily activities? Same concept can also be seen in the field of communication. There are processes involved. Take a look in illustration. The first one is the source. The source is the person attempting to share information. The source can be a living or living entity. Second is the encoding. Is the process of assembling the message, information, ideas, thoughts into a representative design with the objective of ensuring that the receiver can comprehend it. In channel, there is a noise that that in the channel it is an encoded message is conveyed by the source through a channel. There are numerous channel categories: the verbal, non-verbal, personal, non-personal, and etc. And the next is the decoding. This is where listening and reading direction carefully, make its claim to fame decode with my care, my friends. And the last one is the receiver. It is the ultimately the message is delivered to the receiver. A good communicator takes the receiver preconception and frames of reference into consideration. Next slide, please. Miss Rihanna, next slide, please. Miss Eliza, next slide, please. The elements of communication. Communication is divided into elements which help us better understand its mechanic or process. The elements are the following. The first one is the speaker. It is the source of information or message. Speakers may want to explain an idea or process, share new information, or show how to do something. When a speaker aims to persuade an audience. They want them to adapt a new position or belief, to change their mind, or to be moved to the action. The second one is the message. It is the information, ideas, or thoughts conveyed by the speaker in words or in action. The message is simply the information you want to communication. The, but it goes deeper than that. Encoding. Encoding the process of the converting the message into words, action, or other form there the speaker understand is the process of assembling the message, information, ideas, and thoughts. Next slide, please. Next is the channel. The medium or the means such as personal or non-personal verbal or non-verbal in which the involved message is conveyed. An encoded message is conveyed message by the source through a channel. Decoding. The process of interpreting the encoded message of the speaker by the receiver. This is where listening and reading direction carefully. Now, the receiver. It is the recipient of the message or someone who decodes the message. It is ultimately the message is delivered to the receiver. The feedback. The feedback. The reaction, responses, or information provided by the speaker. A better word might reaction or responses. The source of judges its success based on the feedback it received, so pay close attention. The context. It is the environment where communication take place. The circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. The last one is the barrier. It is the factors that affects the flow of communication. Communication barriers are something that prevent us from correctly getting us accepting the message others use to communicate their information, thoughts, and ideas. Some of the example of communication barriers are information overload. Some of the examples of communication barriers are information overload, choosy, perception, workplace, gossip, semantics, gender difference, and etc. That would be all. Thank you.